Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be talking about conditional statements. Now, we've talked about conditional statements before in our previous couple of videos. We talked about our if statement and our else statement. In this video we're going to be using our if and else statements, but we're also going to be using another statement called an else if statement. So if I jump into it, I'll create a new file and I'll call my file conditional statements else if. So if we go and open this up now, if you remember to our previous video when we had a variable, so we had a name and we originally set our name to Ryan. We wanted to check to see if Ryan was in fact the name, and if it wasn't, then we just printed out I don't know you. So we can recreate this again with our conditional else if statement, but this time we're going to put an additional check in there, because if you remember in our last video when we changed our name to Chris, we didn't know about Chris, so we would print out I don't know you. If we put in Amy or if we put in Chloe, we'd still get the same exact output, which would be I don't know you. So let's recreate this really quickly. So we're going to start off, we have our let, we're going to have our name variable and we're going to set that to Ryan. Now we want to check to see if the variable name is in fact Ryan, so we're going to say name with two equals, and then we're going to put in quotes our name, creating our curly brackets and doing a console.log, and for the message we just say hello Ryan. Now if we add an else onto this, so we just use the keyword else along with two curly brackets, and we can console log I don't know you. So this was the program that we had in our last video. So if I go and run this now, we can see we get hello Ryan. But if we had a different name, maybe let's say we had Chris, and we go to run this, we'd see I don't know you, which is fair enough because that's exactly how we've programmed our solution. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add in an else if, and an else if is just like an additional check to see if something is true. We will bring our else down here, and rather than putting an else straight after our if, we're going to have an else if. So else if, and we're going to have some condition inside our brackets. So it's quite similar to our else. The only thing that will be affected is the flow of the program. So as we step through the programs, as the computer reads it line by line, it'll be checking to see if our name variable is equal to Ryan. If it's not, it'll move on to our else if, and if our else if is also false, so whatever statement we put in here, let's say we put in name equals to Chloe, and Chloe isn't the name, it'll go and print out I don't know you. But for this example, we're going to put in Chris as our name. So we can have name and double equals, and now we're going to put in our name Chris. So what will happen now is, since our name is set to Chris, we want to print out something inside this else if statement. And what we want to do is we want to greet Chris. So we want to console log hello Chris. So by looking at this program now, we can see that if our name is equal to Chris, we'll print out hello Chris. So we just tidy this up a little bit. We can bring our else up here. I just feel it looks a little bit neater. And when we run this now, we should see hello Chris displayed. So I'm going to run this and see our output, and we can see hello Chris. And if we change this back to maybe Ryan, and then we go and run this, we can see we get hello Ryan. And then if we put in a different name in here, maybe we put in Amy, and we want to run this, we see I don't know you, because the program that we've created here is only aware of two different people. And the two different people that it's aware of is Ryan and Chris. So it does a check for those two people, or we know them as people, but they're just actually strings as far as the computer's concerned. You know, it just sees this string as RYAN, and it sees this second string as KRIS. And our else if isn't limited to just using one. So we could have, let's say, maybe another else if. So let's just bring our else down to the next line here, and we want to do another else if. So we want to check for another name. So maybe we want to check for Amy. So we'll say else if, our two brackets. Now we're going to put our condition inside. So we'll have name with a double equals and our name Amy. So if we go and step through this now, we should find that if we have Amy set as our name, we will execute whatever code will be inside these curly brackets. So similar to the other two conditional statements, inside this one we're just going to put a console log and greet Amy. So now if we go and run this, we can see that we get hello Amy, while when we run this before, the computer didn't know that Amy existed, or it didn't have a check to see if our name variable was in fact Amy. So now, depending on what we set our name to, if we set our name to Ryan, it'll greet us as Ryan. If we set it to Chris, it'll greet us as Chris. Or if we set it to Amy, it'll greet us as Amy. But keep in mind, if there's some name that we're not familiar with, or there's some name that we haven't programmed into our computer, so if we use maybe the example Chloe, so if we go and search for Chloe, or we go and run this program with Chloe as our name variable, we can see that we get a I don't know you message, and that's because we haven't programmed Chloe into our if or our else if statements. You could do multiple if statements and multiple if else statements, but there's actually something else you can use, and it's pretty handy, and it's called a switch statement, and it's much cleaner and it's much easier to understand. So in our next video, that's what we'll be going through.